Alright, what's good? Team Sanity here, giving you a deck profile for my Kuriboh / Lyralist deck, ring style. And let's get right into it. First off, with the monsters, we're going to start off with triple Kuriboh. Good hand trap if you don't want to take any battle damage. Essential for this deck. Next up, we're going to start with triple wing Kuriboh. His effect is good if you don't want to take any battle damage. All you have to do is set him or special him. This deck is going to mainly consist of level 1s. Next up, we got Clear Kuriboh, good for effect damage. And if your opponent declares a direct attack, you can banish him from your graveyard. Special summon, well, draw a card. And if it's the monster, special summon it, change the attack target. More graveyard material. And the reason why you would want these monsters in your graveyard is for the next card. At 2, Kuriboh. He's good if you have a monster who's destroyed by battle at the end of the battle phase. You can discard him, special summon the monster who was destroyed by battle. Also, if your opponent declares any kind of attack, you can banish him from your graveyard, special summon as many of your Kuriboh monsters as possible, and you'll have more material. And next up, we have Bandit at 1. His effect, if he's normal summoned, you can tribute him during the end phase, excavate the top 5 cards, add a spell or trap that was excavated, and send the rest to the graveyard. That'll be good if you want your Kuriboh monsters in the graveyard. Next up, we have our Lyralist monsters. First off, we're going to start with triple Lyralist Turquoise Wobbler. Her effect is good for specialing if she's in your hand and you control the monster, special summon. And if you have a Lyralist monster in your hand or in your graveyard, special summon that. Next up, we have triple Lyralist Cobalt Sparrow. If she's special summoned, you can add 1 Wing Beast type monster from your deck to your hand. And if you were to use this for Exceed summons, if you use her for a Wind Exceed, your opponent cannot target that Exceed monster with card effects. Next up, for the last Lyralist monster, we have triple Sapphire Swallow. Her effect, if you control a Wing Beast type monster, you can special summon her and another Wing Beast type monster, whichever one of your Lyralist monsters you have from your hand. Good for link plays, and if you're going for Exceed plays, then her effect, if you use her for a Win Exceed monster, you can target a Lyralist monster in your graveyard as Exceed material. And next up, for if you can't really get any of your other plays out, just for a little protection, we run at 1 Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. Good for getting rid of monsters, and you can attack twice if he destroys a monster by battle, or you can banish a monster, but you won't be able to attack. And all you have to do to summon him is banish 1 light and 1 dark, which with the Kuriboh monsters, we have a bunch of those. Next up, the spell and traps, we run triple Flute of Summoning Kuriboh. That'll let you get out your Kuriboh or Wing Kuribohs. That's how you'll be able to special them. And next up, we do run tokens in this deck at double multiply. Tribute a Face of Kuriboh. Special summon as many Kuriboh tokens, all level 1, which we mainly run in this deck. That's good for your link plays. Next up, we have double Scapegoat. Usually quick play spell, you'd want to use this on your opponent's turn so that you can use the tokens next turn, because once activated on your turn, you cannot summon any other kind of monsters. Next up, we run at 1 1-for-1. Send a monster from your hand, special summon 1 level 1. You can use that for any of your Kuriboh monsters, or if you wanted to use it for like one of your Lyralist monsters like Cobalt Sparrow, get her effect in. Or if you want to discard any of your monsters. Next up, we run at 1 Monster Reborn. Good staple card. Target a monster in either player's graveyard, special summon it. Next up, we run at Soul Charge. Won't be able to battle, but at least you can get your monsters from the graveyard. Next up, we run 1 Foolish Burial. Send a monster from the deck to the graveyard. That'll be good for your Kuriboh. Next, we have Dark Hole for monster control. Then, because you will be doing some banishing, we run at 1 Pot of Aquativeness, and that'll be good for your banishes. Next up on the traps, rerun 2 Dark Bribes. That's for your spell and traps. Negate those, although your opponent does get to draw a card. And since we have the 1 Kuriboh Bandit and you will be discarding a lot, we run at 2 Jar of Avarices. Target 5 cards in the graveyard. Shuffle them into the deck, draw a card. Next up, rerun Lost Wind. Only run 1 of these because it acts like 2 cards when your opponent special summons from the extra deck. Target a special summon monster, half its attack, effects are negated. And lastly, we run at 1 Solemn Strike. For monster effects, just pay 15, or for summons. Next up, we have our extra deck, starting with 2 Link Kuribohs. Only takes 1 level 1 monster. If your opponent declares an attack, tribute this card. Reduce its attack to 0 for that turn. Tribute 1 level 1. Special summon it from the graveyard. Then we run 1 Nightmare Phoenix for spell and trap control and discard power and draw power, and 1 Nightmare Cerberus. Same reason except for special summon monsters in the main monster zone. Next up, we run 1 YUGIOH Apprentice. This deck is gonna mainly consist of dark monsters. I'll show you in a minute. And if she's destroyed, you can add a dark monster from your graveyard. Next, we run 2 Proxy Dragons, mainly to go into link plays. Then we run 1 Decode Talker. He just takes 2 effect monsters. You can just pop out a Link Kuriboh and a Proxy Dragon. Easy to get him for negation, and he gains attack for every card that points to him, or he points to. Next up, we run 1 Bullsword Dragon. He's a pretty good monster, not that hard to get out with this deck. Good for your opponent's monster when he declares an attack. He can have your opponent's monsters attack and then gain that other half, and you can get 2 attacks if you quick effect put a monster into defense. Then we have some exceeds until I can get more link monsters for this deck. We run 1 Lyralist Assembled Nightingale. She can attack directly, gains 200 for every exceed material that she has. Not that bad. And quick effect, you can detach 1, you won't take any battle damage. And Lyralist monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. Next up, we run 1 number 54 Lionheart, 3 level 1s. He's pretty good, just at 100, but his effect, if he were to take damage involving this card, you can either let both you and your opponent take the damage, or detach 1 and only your opponent would take all the damage. Next up, we run 1 number 13 Embodiment of Crime and 1 number 31 Embodiment of Punishment. Now you need both of these on the field, which, since you're doing link plays, you can get both of them by using either Decode or YUGIOH. But when they're both on the field, they both gain their effects, which is this card cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects while it has exceed material, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would take from this card. Also, you can detach 1, flip all your opponent's monsters to attack position, and they must attack if they can. And that'll be it for extra deck, and that's it. That's all I have for this deck.